Good morning and welcome to the August 21st edition of the Pre-Market Prep session. I'm your host, Adam Holland, stock options expert market strategist, and we're here to go over the important news, notes, and analysis necessary to make sure that you remain consistently profitable here through these ever volatile markets. We've got a lot coming up, a lot coming down the pipeline. We've got Powell speaking at Jackson Hole on Friday, and we've got the dollar sitting at a very or nearing, right, getting in the zone of a very important level. It served as major support in the past. The dollar is typically inversely related to markets. So if the dollar, hits support and starts to bounce, then markets can start to turn around. So it's very important for you to be aware of what's coming down the pipeline with markets, right? For you to be in a community and have resources that are able to actively support and proactively have you positioned for what is happening in this ever volatile world, right? We've got a lot of craziness that's happening. It's election season all over the world. There are multiple wars that are going on. We're in the middle of major, fiscal pivots and things like that. There could be major changes in policy from the Fed. There are a lot of things going on and a lot of things to juggle, but it doesn't mean that there's not lots of monetizable opportunities. So make sure that you have the correct system and mindset in place in order to take advantage of that opportunity. Do little things, trust the process. And continue to get 1% better daily. That's what we're here to do. So whether you're watching live or via replay, make sure you throw those ones in the chat signifying your intention to get 1% better by the end of this session. That's all we're trying to do, right? If you do that continuously, each and every day, you find yourself taking leaps and bounds when it comes to bettering yourself and being able to close the gap, right? Shocking yourself and being able to really help and support not only yourself, but those around you, right? Blessed to be a blessing, expose people to other things, expose people to more. It's a great thing, right? It's a great thing, and it's something that when you pass down knowledge, you pass down something that can never be taken away. Once a person is aware of something and they know how to do something, or they know something's real, right? It can change their life. So I don't put that burden on myself, but I do like to try and expose people to more always. So let's expose ourselves to what this market is going to do here on this day, or at least what news we have going on, because no one knows exactly what markets will do. But we are just we're in a spot where going into September, right, we're approaching something significant, right? More than likely, we're going to see some significant movement by markets in September. We have, we're slated out for the first rate cuts. And we could definitely have a position where we push a little bit higher, kind of retest highs, right? But then what we do from there on out is going to be really important. Um, we could kind of push going into rate cuts, and then the dollar, gets stronger as rate cuts occur. So it's you gotta be aware of kind of what's coming down the pipeline so that you're able to execute. I'm never scared of anything that's going to happen, just because I know that I'm locked in, and I try and control as much as I can control, including risk. So I'm never really fearful, things that come down the pipeline. But you got to do your part, right? Got to do your part. Stay locked in. And so we get locked in, let's dive into our top news here. Authorized personnel only. So the Federal Trade Commission's ban on non-competes has been struck down by a federal judge in Texas on grounds that the agency does not have the authority to issue such broad-based rules. Independent contractors and employees, whether paid or unpaid, were included under the ban, which also required employers to rescind existing non-competes and actively inform workers that they were no longer in effect. About 30 million Americans are currently tied to non-competes, according to the FTC, representing 20% of the U.S. workforce. Quote, the commission's lack of evidence as to why they chose to impose such a sweeping prohibition instead of targeting specific harmful non-competes renders the rule arbitrary and capricious, U.S. District Judge Ada Brown wrote in the ruling. The role of an administrative agency is to do as told by Congress, not to do what the agency thinks it should do. The FTC exceeded its statutory authority, and the rule would cause irreparable harm. So this judge is basically saying fall in line, right? Fall in line, do what you're supposed to do. stop all this free thinking and overstepping of your power and liberties, and basically get yourself in check. Invalidating and banning the disclosures deeply divided many inside the business community. Led by the Chamber of Commerce, there were arguments that the agreements protect trade secrets and relationships, as well as investments needed to train or recruit employees. On the other side, claims were made that non-competes prevent workers from freely switching jobs, can deprive them of higher wages or better working conditions, and could constrict the talent pool for businesses that are looking to expand. So, what's next? There had been some other attempts to invalidate the non compete ban in Florida and Pennsylvania, but the latest court decision will set aside the ruling nationwide and bar it from taking effect on September 4th, 2024, or thereafter. The FTC may take a new route by addressing non compete agreements through case by case enforcement actions, but it could also consider appealing Judge Ada Brown's decision. However, if lower courts remain split, the matter could be sent up the legal system, with the case eventually reaching the Supreme Court. Yeah, so we've got the battle of the non competes that are going on here. So we'll see if it did seem like a weird thing that kind of came out of nowhere for the FTC to do. So we'll see what develops, from this. I wonder what the money will like. It feels like there is money behind this, but maybe it has something to do with the AI race, and maybe there's these non-competes that are in place for these big tech workers that go from, let's say, working on Google to working on something at OpenAI, and now suddenly they're at risk of taking proprietary knowledge with them when they go, and maybe somebody put big money, behind this and said, "Hey, FTC, get rid of these non-competes." Um, who knows, right? That's completely just um, what is it? What is it? Conspiracy theory, right? That's completely a conspiracy theory, but it did just seem like something that came out of nowhere, and I don't really see it as directly affecting markets as of right now. That's kind of my digestion of this information, but it does seem to come out of nowhere and kind of at a weird time. So yeah, I mean, we could speculate, but we'll see how that ends up working itself out in court. In terms of consumer news, stake dump. Walmart has fully exited its near 10% holding in JD.com, sending the Chinese e-commerce firm shares down 7% pre-market on Wednesday. The stake, worth billions of dollars and offloaded in one go, may add to the Chinese tech slump and create new dynamics in the foreign market. Quote, this decision allows us to focus on our strong China operations for Walmart China and Sam's Club. I did not know that Walmart owned Sam's Club, and deploy capital towards other priorities, Walmart said in a statement. Meanwhile, JD conducted a $390 million stock buyback, fully utilizing the amount authorized under its $3 billion repurchase program. So Walmart had a stake in JD, dumped their stake in JD, and obviously this is just more negative news when it comes to Asian markets. Um, Automotive news: Robo Momentum, Alphabet's autonomous vehicle unit Waymo has surpassed 100,000 trips per week, doubling the volume reported in May. Waymo's product chief Saswat Panigrahi said the company hit the target by scaling deliberately, optimizing costs, and delivering a strong consumer experience. The milestone arrives less than 2 months before Tesla is scheduled to hold its robotaxi event. The company is one of the most vocal in the industry and has expressed ambitions about creating a fleet that allows drivers to rent out their personal vehicles. Yeah, I think if it works and they can make it work, that would be great, right? It would be a great setup. But autonomous vehicles, it's a tough nut to crack. And Google's had issues, right? Waymo's had issues. Everybody has had their issues. But I believe that it's something that if they can get it right, right, then obviously there's billions to be made. And there's so much that can be built on top of that, right? There's like a whole economy of scale that could be built on top of autonomous driving, in autonomous vehicles. So I think this is something, of course, worth keeping an eye on, but it's nothing that immediately, like, I hear this and I'm like, oh wow, right? Time for me to hop in on Google. No, not the case, right? Um, the charts are always going to tell you that when it's time to enter, when it's time to exit. So that's what you want to learn to pay the most attention to, put the most credence in. And if you don't know how to do that, you don't know how to read the charts, you don't know when to get in, when to get out, email me, right? Subject line trade, Adam at adamhalnededucates.com. and don't waste time in doing it. Everybody says, "Oh, I wish I would have taken advantage of that dip that just happened. We're already back up." And, "Oh, I don't know if I have the time to do this." We let intrusive thoughts rule us our whole lives, and we're prisoners of the thing between our ears that was meant to keep us alive, but not necessarily hardwired for us to thrive. So move when fearful, move when you're not sure. All of that, right, ends up paying off big. But never did anyone in life play it safe and then go to sleep for the last time and say, "Yeah, I feel good about this." Nobody. Economic news here. Revisions get serious. Job growth in the U.S. for the 12 months ending March is expected to have been much weaker than estimated. Some fear the preliminary benchmark revision, which will be published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics this morning, may even be as large as a million, which could translate into over 80,000 payrolls per month. It could also spur calls for deeper interest rate cuts amid concerns the Fed may have waited too long to start its easing cycle, putting another spotlight on Jerome Powell's Jackson Hole speech on Friday. So it's going to be all eyes on Powell on Friday. And we're getting into this home stretch where I think we could start to see a series of events that are impactful for us, right? In terms of the economy. We've got Powell speaking at Jackson Hole, and we've got, looming interest rate cuts that we assume are going to happen in September, around mid-September. We've got the market that is, rapidly approaching previous all-time highs, right? Which is a spot where we could serve, to break through and continue to push, or we reject and we turn around and we start some selling, right? A great spot for us to take profit on our longs and our long swings and some leaps. Um, Rate cuts have not immediately caused the markets to go up, right? Like over the course of the long term. Again, like I talked about before, people can go take their money out of markets and go do things with that money now that it is less expensive to do things. So they can go out and buy that house, buy that car. Some people get that divorce, right? Get that boat, get that vacation home. Do whatever you wanted, right? So a lot of people take money out of the market in order to do that. So when you see, rate cuts happen, a lot of people might think, "Oh, we can rock it from here." But we're actually in a very delicate spot where if we look back at what's happened in the past and we look back at price action and things like that, there's a little bit more planning and foresight that has to go into it other than, rate cuts happen and we immediately rock it, right? There's more nuance to it than that. So that's really that spot that we're approaching, like from a high level standpoint of just really watching what happens, seeing how we progress, right? Maybe watch for signs of topping out. And then, of course, for positioning to the downside. But we've got, kind of semiconductors popping to a level like the whole ETF, right? For if you look at ETFs representing semiconductors, popping to levels that they can reject. You've got SPY in the market rapidly approaching when it comes to all-time highs, right? We're pushing up toward them. You've got the dollar that's sitting at major support, right? So you've got all of these different things where it's like semis are a significant portion of the market now, right? Look at just Nvidia and how it's heavily weighed in the S&P and the Nasdaq, right? If we have semis top out and maybe those start to turn, and semis have really reversed nicely. And have been paying us, right? Nice dip buy on AMD, and then Nvidia as well, right? Falling down to that Omega zone. So chips have been doing well for us, but when you've got kind of chips at a spot where they got to get back above it in order to remain bullish, like the whole sector, and then you've got the dollar approaching an area of major support. You've got the market approaching a major area of resistance and all-time highs. It's something where you have to look around, right, and understand what's happening around you and not just be like, "Wow, I'm making money, everything's amazing." In order to continue making money, you have to look forward, right? Not right now. And that's what everybody who is wealthy and maintains and proliferates their wealth, that's what they do, right? They don't just say, "Man, everything is going so great. I hope it continues." They look around and they say, factor one, factor two, factor three. All of these things could be pointing toward a picture, right, that's painted that I need to then adjust my picture to make sure that it's matching up. Um, so yeah, be locked in. It's going to be an exciting time, fun time. In terms of today's markets in Asia, Japan down 0.3%, Hong Kong down 0.7, China down 0.4, India up 0.1, the footy in London up 0.2, Paris up 0.5, Frankfurt up 0.5, the Dow up 0.1, S&P up 0.2, Nasdaq up 0.2, crude up 0.3, gold down 0.1, Bitcoin down 2.1%. We're just hovering and meandering around 60K. Um, We got FOMC minutes today at 2 p.m., but we don't have Powell speaking, so not really, super locked in on those at all. What else is happening? We got our rapid fire stock news rundown here. Twitter buyout was worst deal for banks since the financial crisis. Target rallies after topping earnings expectations. Lowe's, ticker low, slips on guidance cuts due to soft DIY demand. They might see that pick up though, as rates edge off. EU plans to slash tariff on China-made Tesla cars to 9%. Biden said to approve nuclear weapons strategy for Chinese threat. Teucrium, corn below $4 per bushel, a potential investment opportunity. Warner Bros. To spend billions on Vegas studio on one condition. Whatever that condition is, I don't know. Fed's Bowman remains wary of future rate cuts amid inflation risks. And then NIO, ticker NIO, unveils plan to expand charging stations across China. Oppenheimer lists its top 23 or 32 stock picks for August to September. So that'll wrap us up and put a bow on it, right? On this fine hump day here, Wednesday, August 21st, 2024. We're coming through to the end of August. We're approaching September. We're approaching potentially the first rate cut, right? Mid-September, like September 17th. We're in a very fun time, right? A very fun time, a time where you want to keep your eyes open. You want to notice, okay, are we starting to push up and stall out? And also, this is a gradual thing, right? I feel like everybody hears things that I'm thinking about and that I talk about, and they're like, "All right, Adam, like I'm ready to completely cash out of the market and sell every bit of stocks that I have because you said, we might not continue to go up." This is something that happens gradually, right? I'm looking on like the weekly, right? We're looking high level. And being able to operate on different timelines like that is really something that you want to aspire to be able to do, right? For you to be able to have two things coexist is one of the toughest things for humans to do because we want things to be so black and white. Right, we want things to be so black and white, but it's never like that. So as long as you can have things coexist and recognize, like you can look at someone and say they might have done something bad, but they're not a bad person, right? The market might move like this short term, but this is my, idea, my kind of theory that I have about a long term, right? The ability for these two things to coexist, right, is super important as an adult, but also with you in markets, right? We're getting in election times. There's going to be both parties that have ideas that you probably agree with, and both things that you probably very much dislike. Right, in a world that makes you think it's got to be one or the other, oftentimes it's a lot of both in everything. So you've got to be able to hold both in your head and understand it and be okay with it, and hold both in your heart and understand it and be okay with it. And that balance is really what allows us to continue to not only survive but thrive and get 1% better daily. Right. So everybody have a great rest of the day. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning for our next pre-market prep session. Have a good one.